How you doing, everybody? Cliff Yates, the Reluctant Gardener. Are you ready to make some beautiful bougainvilleas from a cutting? Well, that's what we're going to do today. Let's see how we're going to do it. How you doing, everybody? Cliff Yates, the Reluctant Gardener. I love to garden and grow things, but reluctantly. Today what we're going to do is we're going to take some cuttings from bougainvillea because we want to start a couple more bougainvillea plants. So we're going to take some cuttings and we're going to plant them and get them ready to be rooting in 5 to 6 weeks. Now the best time to do this is in the spring, like in May, June, July, August, but we're in October. You can still do it in October, it's just not the best time. You want cuttings that aren't too hardened, too thick, and you don't want something that's a little too thin that won't stand up in the soil that we plant them in. So you want some kind of shoot that's within 3 or 4 months old. So I think we got a couple of good ones here that we can use. This will be a good one. There we have, and actually I think this one might be a good one. It's not too old. And then we got one up here that I think might be just about right. Now we're going to take these and we're going to kind of strip off most of the leaves and the flowers and get them ready for planting. Okay, here's our cuttings. I've got about 6 here, and here's our potting soil. I use what they have at the drugstore. It's called perlite. You can actually use sand. Some people use straight sand because you want it to be moist, but you want it to drain. If it's too wet, these cuttings, they'll rot at the end and they won't root. So I use a combination of this perlite, which is kind of like a sand, and I mix it with topsoil. So it makes kind of a nice drainage, a good drainage for our propagation of our cuttings. So we're going to take our cuttings, and I also use a dry powdered rooting hormone. They also have these root stimulators at the drugstore or any Armstrong or plant store, and they could be gel or liquid. This happens to be a powder. And what we're going to do is I'm going to make my holes because I want to be able to put these cuttings in here without knocking off too much of the rooting compound. So what we're going to do is we're going to dip the cutting into the rooting compound so that it's covered. And then we're going to knock off the excess. And then we're going to place it down in our planting hole. Okay, I'm going to do that with each cutting. Dip it in the root stimulator. Knock off the excess. And put it in the hole that we created. Cover that up. Make another one. You can use a pencil or a screwdriver to make your own hole. Take the root stimulator, put it on there. Knock off the excess. And we're going to keep that doing that until we're done with putting our cuttings in there. I think we'll do one more. We got room. Give ourselves the best possibility for these to take. Okay? So, potting soil mixed with the perlite or sand so that it can drain. It's got to be moist, but it can't be sitting in too much water because they'll rot and they won't root. And we've got the rooting stimulating hormone. It could be a gel or a liquid, or I'm using a powder. It costs about $6, $7. Dip the cutting in, knock off the excess, plant them in. And then we're ready for the next step. We got a coat hanger. Here's what we're going to do is we're going to create our own little greenhouse effect. I'm going to take this coat hanger and I'm going to make a little bit of a loop with it, and then we're going to cover it with a white 13-gallon trash bag. You don't want clear, it's going to get too hot. So we want the white. It's going to give us our filtered light, which is going to be great for creating our little tiny greenhouse effect. Okay, now we're going to take our coat hanger, undo the coat hanger. Okay, now what we're going to do is stick the coat hanger in, straighten out the ends here. All right, let's stick this in the pot like this. See, and now what that's going to do is allow us to put our bag over. It'll keep the bag from being on top of our cuttings and create that dome, which is going to create condensation, keep everything moist inside our little greenhouse. So now that we have our little framing here, we are now going to wet this down really good, and then we're going to put our bag over top and close it in, and then we're going to put it in a shaded area where it has filtered light for about 5 to 6 weeks, and then we'll check it out and see which cuttings took. So our next step is to wet this down really good. Okay, now we want to water this down really good. Of course, I'm probably going to go a little overboard, as I always do, but you want to wet that really good before we put our little greenhouse top on. Okay, so now you take your 13-gallon white trash bag. And like I said, you want white because you want it to be filtered light. If it's a clear bag, it tends to get too hot. And so you want with the bag to create a greenhouse effect so we get that condensation, and the light is filtered. So this is going to work out perfect. So let's take our bucket and we're going to put this on here, and we already created a little frame with our coat hanger. And what we do is we cover that totally, and we're going to get that, not too tight, but we don't want the wind to blow it. And we don't want the gardeners to come through with their blower and blow this off either. So, and if you want, every couple weeks, if you want, you can kind of undo this, or every week, and you can spray some water on it, or you can just let the air get to it. But now we got our little frame, and this will keep the bag off our plants, and it creates a little greenhouse effect. Okay, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to take our little greenhouse here, and we're going to put it right over here in the shade so we get some indirect filtered light. And I'm going to leave it right there in this corner for about 5 to 6 weeks, and then we're going to undo it and see which cutting took root. All right, that's it from the reluctant gardener, Cliff Yates. He took a cutting from a Bougainvillea, and let's hope it takes.